Game day.
Welcome everybody to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10 Live, brought to you by Philco Sports. You are here with JP and Quentin. What's up, my man?
Hey.
How you doing?
Got a new background. So
I see that. Nice.
Yeah, the flag, that flag is not participating in the event, but I thought the Super Bowl one right above my head.
That's always nice. It's
Yeah.
always nice. Got a few topics to go over.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with the Chiefs here. So, there's been a lot of talk about, well, let's start off with this. The Chiefs did sign John Ross, wide receiver, to a futures deal. It doesn't necessarily mean he cannot play this year, but he most likely won't. If for some reason he picks up the playbook fairly quickly, who knows? But right now it's on a futures deal. I think
You want to
that's a
explain
really
to
good
everybody
signing.
what a futures deal is?
It's basically a contract for the future. It's set up for really a future playing time and also a determination on how much they're going to pay him. So he is signed to a certain amount, but they can change that at any point. Right now, like I said, he could play. I guess if he picked up the playbook and Andy wanted to activate him, they could. But I don't know if that'll happen this year or not. He's damn good. He's fast, extremely fast. Good route running abilities, and he's got a high football IQ. So you never know if we might end up seeing him down the stretch in the playoffs or even maybe the Super Bowl. But I would almost tend to think that the way Tony is playing and everybody else for that matter, and then McColl's supposed to be coming back. I just don't know if they'll play him this season. But he might. You never know. Andy does some crazy stuff. So that's some good news.
Yeah, and it's sort of the way I like to think about it. It's sort of like it's almost like a gesture of good faith. It's sort of like, we're really interested in you. Let's sort of put this in writing instead of having this just sort of over a phone call.
Exactly.
You know, it's putting it in writing, and so hopefully the Chiefs can get first dibs.
Well,
And that's the way I sort of view it.
Yeah, it protects him. I mean, the Chiefs have the first rights to him since they signed him to a futures deal. And all he has to do is agree to whatever they decide to do later on. You know, I mean, it's really going to be a matter of if he fits within the system and he picks up the playbook. Because there's going to be wide receivers that aren't going to be here next year. I mean, from what I understand, Cornell Powell won't be here next year. I don't know about McColl yet, but
I'm more split now than I was before, because I originally thought when the season started, I was like, McColl's not coming back here. He's probably going to end up with a Christian Kirk kind of contract where, as long as he has an average to above average for his 6th year, what's going to end up happening is the Chiefs are not, the contract's going to get too rich for their blood, and he'll go off to a team that has a quarterback on a rookie deal or who doesn't have a long-term quarterback solution, and so they'll take him. They'll be able to pay him a little bit more than Kansas City. Then this abdomen injury occurred, and he's been out for damn near 2 months now.
Yeah.
And so I think that has a chance to sort of force him into signing one of those one-year prove-it deals, so that way the following year he can go and get one of those big bank sort of contracts.
Well, I've kind of heard some rumors about a contract floating around for him with the Chiefs. We'll just have to see how that plays out. If it is what I heard it is, it's a very team-friendly deal, and it secures him for a couple extra years. So if that happens, it's great. I mean, I don't have any ill will at all. I like McColl. I think he's a good guy, and I think he's a good player. He just needs to be put in the right position to succeed.
He's a great 3. He's a
He is.
fantastic 3. That's
Yeah.
and if that's if the Chiefs are realistic with themselves and are able to secure him up and make him a number 3 wide receiver, a guy that every once in a while they'll use in the wide receiver, sweep game and as their punt returner, I think that it's a fantastic use of McCole Hardman, and it would be great to be able to keep him around for those things.
As long
Nobody
as
should
he's
have
convinced.
as long as everybody's on the same page there, then I think that's a perfect way to use him.
Yeah, I agree. Um, I would like to see him come back. There's a few guys that I think we won't see back, from what I'm hearing. We're not going to see Ronald Jones back. Probably not going to see Ceh back. Um, Again, Cornell Powell. There's going to be a few that are gone,
Deuce Vaughn
but
to Kansas City.
hey, you never know. Um, Moving on to the next little topic of the Chiefs, Chris Jones. Everybody's talking on Twitter. Well, I can't say everybody, but a select few of people are talking on Twitter about Chris Jones. What's up, Thiz? Um, about him being traded next year. That
Extension. Contract
he's going to be
extension.
extended.
Extension.
You cannot find a player of his caliber anywhere. You are not going to pick one up off the street, and you're definitely not going to pull one out of college. That is a proven. Right now, he's the number one defensive player in the league. So, or defensive tackle, I should say. You can't find that. That's not just, you're not just going to walk in and say, well, I'll take that guy, and he's the one that's going to be as good as Veach has been about pulling players in. This is not a guy you just let go. And he loves Kansas City. He wants to stay. I don't think there's going to be a problem extending him, and that should squash all of this talk about him being traded. This whole thing with Tyreek has got people thinking that you can just go out and get 3 or 4 draft picks and sign another player like Chris Jones. It's 2 totally different positions.
Yeah,
2
and
totally different positions.
there's no, there's he's actually the Patrick Mahomes of the defense. He's the guy that elevates everybody else on that defensive line.
Absolutely.
So I've been on the extend Chris Jones boat since training camp. I know that they're not letting him ride on that contract going into next year. It is a $30 million cap hit for next year. That's not happening. They will extend him, ease that cap up, guarantee him some more money later in the contract, even if it just adds 2 more years on the end of that contract, would make him, 31, depending on when his birthday is.
Yeah.
And then he goes back, then he hits free agency again. So I've been on this boat the whole time. I do not think that they will end up trading him. I do not want to see this defense without Chris Jones. That is so important to think about. Chris Jones has 15.5 sacks. He is constantly breaking up plays, and he has literally closed out 5 games this year.
Yeah.
Almost 6 if it weren't for, someone being offended by what he said to Matt Ryan. And if you do not have Chris Jones on this defense, it would look so bad. Oh, it would. It truly would. I don't want to see this defense without him.
No, definitely not. I mean, you just can't do it. That's the reason why the Rams hung on to Aaron Donald for so long, and they kept paying him, because how do you find somebody that you can replace him with? It's impossible. You had 2 dominant players in the league, in that defensive tackle, pass rush type of player, and it's Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. Aaron Donald is going to retire this year, and it leaves Chris Jones to be the number 1 guy for the next 3 years, and he will be. He's in phenomenal condition, and the fact that he can move around and play different positions on the line and be just as effective on the edge as he is in the interior, I'm okay with him staying. I mean, and if anybody has any ideas that it's a great idea to pull another 3 or 4 draft picks for that position, you're wrong. I don't know what else to tell you, but you're wrong. It's a lot easier to overcome when you have a Patrick Mahomes. It's a lot easier to overcome losing a Tyreek Hill, as he proved this year with 5,250 yards and 41 touchdowns, with a bunch of guys that supposedly weren't going to make the playoffs. So, yeah, you just can't do that. There's positions you can get away with it sometimes, but you cannot do it like that. It's just
And I've seen the comparison between, what the Chiefs are, the conversation about trading Chris Jones and what the 49ers did after their Super Bowl run against us. And they said, well, the 49ers had that defense and they traded away Armstead. And my response to that is this, that Armstead was not the number one player on that defense. They had other players on that team that were more important to the entire defensive line in the pass rush, that they were able to trade away Armstead to acquire some of those picks back, and they were able to replace that production.
Correct.
Chris Jones is not like that. Chris Jones to this defense is the TJ Watt, the JJ Watt. All of these guys, they are the main staple of this defense. And while his value may never be higher on the trade market, I just do not want to see what this defense is without his dominance on the defensive line. Because much like a great guard, you will never completely see all of the work that goes in at a defensive tackle position.
It's a lot of coordination, a lot of technique, and a lot of footwork, speed. There's so much that goes into it, and most guys just don't get it that quickly.
I mean, the guy had 15 and a half sacks, and that's defensive edge, pure pass rusher numbers. Yeah. Defensive tackles are not supposed to do that. I think also, we've seen guys like Aaron Donald and what he's done, and so we have this in our head, and we sort of get caught up that that's just what defensive tackles are supposed to do. That's not true. Defensive tackles are not supposed to get defensive edge rusher numbers. No. And we in Kansas City just have that guy that's able to do it. So I understand this defensive line has played very well. They've gotten a lot of production from a bunch of different guys. Yep. And we can be okay with that because we have one guy being dominant along the defensive line. Chris Jones is so important. I cannot stress this enough.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling that people think it's okay to trade somebody off like him. But that's just, again, that's part of not understanding the game and understanding the positions, and that's all good and great. But yeah, I can't see it happening. And honestly, I don't see them. I think they will work something out with Frank Clark and figure out a way of bringing him back. As we talked about on the show right after the game Saturday, I apologize. We did find out that his groin injury was not significant during the game, right after the game. And Andy came out and said that it wasn't a major issue, that he's going to be fine, he just needs to rest, which we knew. But I think Frank has played very well this year. I think this entire line, I would be happy if they brought back everybody that they utilized this year, bring him back next year. Mike Dana, everybody just come back. Because I think one more year of these guys gelling together is just going to be huge. Huge. They have to, at some point, you can't just continue the turnover reign. It just doesn't work out. You have to keep your dominant guys. And, there's areas that you can do that with, but I wouldn't do it with the defensive line. We've seen the struggles that not only our team has had with the line, but other teams in general. And you can't really rotate your offensive line guys that much, because once you get a good group, you got to hang on to them.
Yeah. I'll say this, that there's going to be new guys coming in this year because this is a very heavy defensive line draft class. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any specific person in mind who the Chiefs will come up with. I'll have that sort of information here, in a few months. But this is a very heavy defensive line class. A lot of edge rushers coming out again. So
there's three of them that I can think of right now that are animals, dude.
Yeah.
Chiefs get one of the three.
And even though, the Chiefs pick back towards the end of the first round again, we saw that some of those guys do have a tendency to slip. Yeah. And if you have, 4 quarterbacks going and wide receivers are continuing to come out. So you could see sort of the process of one of those guys slipping down, and the Chiefs are able to snag one of them up just because there are so many defensive line guys, both tackles and edges.
Yeah.
So I could see that Kansas City is able to get in one of those guys. Like I said, I don't have a name right now. I will later.
I can tell you teams. Right now, there's a guy out of Oregon that is a beast of an edge rusher. There's a guy out of Iowa that I watched, I don't know, probably 7 of their games, and there wasn't one time he didn't get a sack or wasn't in the backfield. And there's a guy from Ohio that is
okay.
Yeah. And if the Chiefs got one of those 3 guys, just as depth, that would be great.
Yeah, and then of course you've got, places like Alabama and the Georgias of the world. All of them have guys coming out. K-State has a guy that's coming out. So there are quite a few guys that will be in the first round and projected to go in the first round. And one of those, just because math, one of them has to slip.
Yeah. Yep. It's virtually impossible for him not to. And then, like we've seen in the past with the players that Veach has picked up, a lot of times they slip a lot further than you expect. Some of them go from a 3rd round projection to a 6th round pick. And we've gotten a lot of those guys. And they've worked out. So I'd say we pick up somebody for depth, but we try to. I would kill to have Carlos Dunlap back here next year. I think he's going to come back. I don't know why he wouldn't. He's still playing very well. He's never not in the backfield. He's the king of SWAT Nation. So
yeah, I started that. I did that.
Yep.
I started that hashtag.
Yeah, you did, and it's working out because we bat down more passes than anybody in the league, by far, anybody in the league. Now, Kadarius Toney is most likely going to be a top 2 wide receiver next year. He's proven it this year that he picks up probably the hardest playbook on the planet. He picked up. He has the speed, the cut, the stop-start speed, the burst that he needs, route running abilities, extremely good balance, opens up lanes like none other. I just think that kid. Man, what a mistake the Giants made. I don't know what else to say. That was a huge mistake on their part. And I don't think he's going to have the injury issues that he had there simply because we have a better training staff. We have coaches that actually care about their players and want to make sure that they're safe. We're not like Brandon Staley that just wants to put your players out there and get them hurt just to prove a point in a meaningless game.
I'll say this too, that because we have other guys, just because Kadarius Toney could be a number 1 wide receiver, but there's not that expectation there because we have a bunch of other guys here too. There's so many other guys that are able to take up snaps, so you don't have to depend on him to play 90% of the snaps in a game. We can rotate guys in and not really miss a beat. One, because the quarterback is so freaking good. The scheme around him is so good, and you just have guys that are comfortable in this offense. And I really do think that this is going to be Legion of Zoom 2.0, right? We had early, that was the thing with Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill. It was, look at all these fast guys. It's like they're playing on ice skates out there, just zooming around. Well, now we're bringing in all these other guys that are, on that same sort of level of speed. Kadarius Toney and Ross and all of these guys, and it's just like this is sort of the next step of that, and you're able to rebuild something that is successful in the NFL, because there's one thing you can't teach in this league, and that is speed.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think, we always forget that we have another Ross that's going to be coming out this year in this next season. So
yeah, that he was put on IR early in the year. He was hurt when he was an undrafted free agent, wasn't he?
He was hurt because he was hurt prior to coming into. He was hurt I think it happened during he was injured before, and then if I'm not mistaken, he hurt himself again in the combine, and they immediately put him on IR prior to this even starting really, but just stashed him away because they knew how he's phenomenal. And once he gets out on the field, it just gave him a year of learning the playbook and understanding everything. And once he gets out on the field and gets the practices in, he'll be in good shape.
So and that was the sort of the point I was making is you've got all of these guys that are coming in. No one person has to take over the offense. It's if I can get a group of guys that they all have a similar skill set and I know my scheme is successful, then no matter what your defense you're running, I know that I'm going to be able to run that play.
Exactly.
And it's just it's going to be the Legion of Zoom 2.0.
Oh, without fail. I mean, this entire offense is really good, with the exception of one offensive lineman. Everybody's good. We all know who that is, Cam Irving Jr. Or 2.0, I should say. Although, yeah, I don't think he's stepped on Mahomes yet. He did fall on him once, but I don't think he's stepped on him yet.
And, I will pull back on my Orlando Brown hate, even though I stand by the fact that I was justified early in the year calling him out. I think that we've seen improvement on him, and even though we were facing some lesser teams, those teams still had good defensive linemen. Max Crosby on the Raiders. Just an example, the defensive line for the Broncos is still pretty good. So even though we were facing lesser teams, that we were still, Orlando Brown was still facing pretty decent pass rush position players, and he stood up. He did not back down. One of the things that I consistently noticed from Orlando Brown is his ability to recover. That was one of the things that just did not happen early in the year. He would get beat, and that was it. There was no secondary footwork movement. It was if he got blown by, if someone blew by him, if someone pushed him away, that was it. They were going for Mahomes, and he sort of figured out how to work his feet, and that's a coaching thing right there. You don't just pick that up on your own. Yeah, and we talked about early, I think right around the bye week, he widened his stance a little bit more, which helped him on some of those power guys that tried to just break him back, because Orlando Brown is not the strongest person in the world, but he can use. The problem is he was It's sort of like a Mitchell Schwartz situation, but we'll see. The improvement's good. I expect him to be back next year. It wouldn't surprise me if he gets franchise tagged again, but that's a discussion for a later date.
I
think that's just the way.
Be up there a little bit, but
I think it adds another 20% onto it.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to get your franchise left tackle and you're not sure, honestly, it's probably going to end up being, what is it, like 20, 22, 24 million, something like that.
I think it'll be somewhere close to 20. Yeah, between 21 and 22 million is probably where it'll be. So, I mean, I think he's got, this year was 17 and a half, if I'm not mistaken. So,
because it is the average of the top 5 at that position.
Yeah.
And then it'll add. So as long as there's no significant change in the market.
Which sometimes you'll see that happen, just so other teams will lose the players they have, depending, if anybody knows their cap space, truly knows their cap space, then that teams will do that purposely. Moving on, Karlaftis. We watched him directly in front of our eyes improve week after week after week after week. He learned his technique. He learned his footwork. He stopped bull rushing and flying past the quarterback, flying past the play, and having to make a U-turn and come back. He is beelining the direction he needs to go. And if he does for some reason miss it, he's back up and he's making a tackle. So I see him next year being in that top 10 range conversation all day long. The guy is just extremely intelligent and is picking up everything that's being thrown at him. And that's something that it's hard to find as well when it comes to a defensive player. It's hard to pick up, especially technique. That's the hardest part to pick up. But he's been worked. Frank has been working with him a lot. Chris worked with him a lot. I think it's huge to have those guys, those veteran mentors, help you become a better player. And that's what they've done. They all want to, and that's what I love about this team is that they want to help each other. They don't want to, oh well, you're coming from my job type of situation, because really it's almost every position we have outside of the cornerbacks and the safeties is basically by committee. I mean, it's on a rotation, and you never know who you're going to see in there, other than Chris Jones for the 95% of the snaps out there. You really don't see a lot of guys that are out there continually besides Chris Jones. They rotate him in and out. They give him fresh legs out on the field. They're all talented, so they all have a different skill set on that defensive line to be able to produce. And I think, I got to be honest, look, a lot was said about bringing in Ingram. I was happy about it. He did okay, but he's no Carlos Dunlap. And I think Dunlap, if he wants to play another year at his age, bring him on, because the man has just been, I think he was a huge impact on the entire line. I think he made everybody play better. He helped everybody play better just because of his play. So
yeah, Karlaftis gave credit to Dunlap on some of those batted passes, and that he was showing him that. So yeah, I think you're on the right track there with Furious George,
yeah.
In that I do think that he over my expectations. I did not, coming into it, you're like, I'm not sure what to expect coming out of it, right? So I figured, if you can get 3 or 4 sacks out of him, you're happy. And this last, month and a half, would you say? He has just turned it on.
Yeah.
I think early in the year we saw him that, the skill set to get past the line was there. It was just like what you said. He was over pursuing guys.
Yeah.
He would blow by him, and then he would just like blow his. It just seemed like he would blow his assignment because he was just able to get past guys, and now the quarterback can scramble where you were standing. And we saw the Chiefs took advantage of Nick Bosa and the 49ers. When they were allowing him to move upfield and then running down where he used to be, right?
Yeah.
So there are, when a guy is using just to blow right by your offensive lineman, you can take advantage of that. And it took him a few weeks, more than a month, actually half the season. But he finally figured out how to hone in that skill set, and he got 5 sacks over the last 6 games, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's impressive just to see really how quickly he was it almost like a light bulb. It went off, and he was able to start producing. So when you're able to get 5 sacks from your rookie, and 5 sacks from your other interior defensive linemen, a couple from your rotational guys, 5 from Frank Clark, and damn near 16 from Chris Jones, this is how you end up top 3 in the NFL in sacks.
Exactly. And a lot of we talked about this early in the season, and I've seen this coming from him, is when you're in college and you're stronger than most of the offensive linemen that you're facing, you're able to just bull rush people, not really use your technique, but just push them over out of the way and get to the quarterback, especially with quarterbacks that weren't very mobile. But the NFL is different, and you have to have, more than anything, you have to have speed and technique. And they have to go hand in hand. They almost have to be simultaneous. And that's what he's picking up on. And he's getting all of those traits that, Carlos and Frank and Chris and all of them have taught him how to do. And he's going to be one of the premier players for probably the next 10 years, barring any injuries. You're going to hear his name a lot every week. So I think I think we're in a great position right now, and I think we need to hang on. I mean, I think Jalen Watson, as far as the corners are concerned, has probably been the least productive out of the secondary, but he still played really well.
I mean, he won us a game too.
Yeah,
So
so it's hard.
he won
It's
that
hard to
Chargers
sit
game
here.
for us.
You see him get burned a couple of times. You go, okay, he got burned a couple of times. When you don't see it out of McDuffie as much, or you don't see it out of Snead as much. So I know, granted, Snead's not a, he's not a rookie, but for the most part, if you really look at a weak link on in our secondary, it would be him, and he's really not weak. He's had a few issues, learning a few different plays, and he definitely isn't like what was his name that played for us that we got rid of this year?
Fenton.
Fenton, Fenton couldn't turn it. It's like he had a neck brace on all the time. God forbid he turned his head around.
Well, and the problem, I don't even want to call it a problem. I would say that with Watson, when you are the quote-unquote weak link, quote-unquote, you're going to get more attention. So because you don't want to throw it into the area of Snead and McDuffie, who have done a really good job. I mean, Snead traveled with, was it DK Metcalf, and shut him down. So when you know that the talent is at the other corner positions, why would I not pick on this guy who, for all intents and purposes, is an average corner?
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything great, but he's also, generally speaking, he's not going to blow his assignment deep down the field. He's not going to go out there looking like the TCU defense yesterday. But then you're going to see more of those plays there just because the percentage is higher, because he's just getting targeted more. And we know that there are plenty of teams out there that have more than one, wide receiver weapon, like the Bengals, for example, who have guys like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Yeah. So when you're throwing it to your number two, well, it's really, I almost want to call those guys 1.5, because they're ones on a lot of teams, but he just so happens to be with the Jamar Chase, so he ends up being the number two. Yeah. Or teams like the Vikings, they've got Justin Jefferson, but they've also got an allotment of other wide receivers that are very productive guys. So
correct.
The Dolphins, another great example of that.
Yes. Well, now that and by the way, Sky Moore, hot take right now, Sky Moore will be a top 10 wide receiver next year. He's got more skill than people give him credit for. All they see is the punt muffs, the kick muffs, but they're not seeing what he actually does in the offense. When he's out there, he's an animal. He's got great route running ability. I think he's just going to continue to pick up and move forward, and he's going to be one of our leading receivers. The crazy thing is that if you look at the numbers that Mahomes put up this year, Juju, as a wide receiver, was the closest to 1,000 yards as a wide receiver than anybody else on our team. Now, of course, Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce. I mean, what did he end up with? 1,200 and almost 1,300 yards.
He got his.
I mean, it's freaking stupid. The guy's got 15 touchdowns on the season, which is 14 touchdowns. That's insane. I mean,
4 of those came in that one Raiders game, though.
In one Raiders game, yeah. Still, I mean,
where he had like 4 touchdowns and 25 yards.
25 yards. Yeah, that was pretty amazing to me.
It's like you can stop him except when it's the most important.
Yeah. Well,
here's what I'll say about Sky Moore. And I was a big proponent of drafting Sky Moore. I wish I had more of this on the record so it doesn't sound like I'm just talking out of my ass. But, I think that if you talk to a lot of Chiefs fans about Sky Moore, the first thing they're going to bring up is the punt returns. And then if you ask them to put the punt returns aside, I think they'll take a second and think about it, and they'll be pretty satisfied with Sky Moore. Now, for me, it's hard to say that he's going to be a top, 10 wide receiver, just because, like we brought up earlier, that there's just going to be a lot of talent on this team. So I'm not sure anybody is going to be able to put up those numbers, especially if Travis Kelce continues to go, if he's anything like this next year as well. It's hard for me to think that any of these other wide receivers are going to be able to, step up when you have guys like Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Jefferson, right? When you've got these other guys putting up these numbers, because their most of the offense. So I don't know if any of our wide receivers are going to be able to compete with that because of those three factors right there. The amount of talent on the team, Travis Kelce's going to get his, and there are just other wide receivers in better positions in the league to put up monstrous numbers. So I think that there's a lot of talent with Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore had, one drop on the season,
Yeah.
and it was kind of thrown behind him, but it hit his hands. So it's one of those where it's like you got to catch it, but it's not necessarily your fault that you didn't catch it. And I think he's going to be a good wide receiver going forward.
Well, I will say this: if Mahomes can put up that type of yardage with a couple of rookies, a lot of first-year guys, and guys that really didn't participate as much as you expected them to, how's he going to do next year? Even if he's hitting 8 or 10 guys in a game, how well? And look, Sky Moore's got some massive yards after the catch. So if he can open up some lanes a little bit more, you're going to see his yak go way up. And even if it's a 15, 20-yard pass, he's probably going to get 35 to 50 out of it. And that's where I think his yardage is going to come from. That's why I say if these guys can hone in on their yak numbers, they will get what they want. They will get to those big numbers. And it's not all just about yardage anyway. It's about a combination of yardage, receptions versus drops. There's so many things, touchdowns. There's so many things that play into that. You know, it's similar to like McKinnon. I mean, he's the only running back that scored a touchdown in a wide receiver position or a receiving touchdown in 6 straight games since the merger. That just doesn't happen. So when you've got talent like that, and I know this year it seemed like Kelsey and really McKinnon were the go-to guys for the most part, but Juju had almost 900 yards. So it's going to be a collective effort for everybody next year, but I think they'll all be able to hone themselves in. And then you add in a couple extra guys that are just phenomenally talented. If you do have an injury or something, you don't have to worry about it so much because those guys are going to step in and get what they need. And we still got Jody Fortson on this team as well. And I think he's a phenomenal player that doesn't get enough credit, and he doesn't get enough play time. I don't know why they kind of cut him back on the play time, but I think he deserves more. And I know Noah Gray has stepped up and he's done a good job, but Jody has that height and that his hands are like glue. I mean, everything that's thrown his way he catches. And he's had a couple of injuries, I get it, but man, he's just really good. So we're stacked. I mean, we're really stacked with talent that nobody, for the most part, or for all intents and purposes, nobody ever thought that the team that we have right now without Tyreek Hill would be as good as it is. Besides a few of us that actually paid attention to the rookies that came in, and knowing that Veach is going to bring in people and Andy's going to bring in people that fit within the system, that fit within this culture. So it looks like to me that we're going to be in pretty good shape moving into this next year. And honestly, I mean, we're a threat for a long time to go to the Super Bowl every year. We're going to be that AFC threat every year to go to the Super Bowl. And I think that's what I love about it the most is the fact that we don't really have to worry about it as much. We don't have to worry if our team is going to make the playoffs or not. We're not the Broncos, we're not the Raiders, we're not the Chargers, we're not anybody else that stacks up on players and has to still worry if we're going to make it or not. We're going to make it. We're living proof that you can. This year is living proof that you can take anybody you want to take. It doesn't matter who it is. Put them on this football field, and they're going to succeed in this offense as long as they have a football IQ.
Yeah, I think that, and next year will be interesting to look at the offense and see how it changes because currently the Chiefs in Pro Football Reference has Patrick Mahomes as the average depth of target for each throw. Yeah. With all these speed guys coming in, are we going to see that offense in the 2018 sense where it goes back to a lot of deep shots down the field where for a couple of reasons. One, you've got this, influx of talent that is good down the field. Two, you just spent an entire year, quote unquote, checking the ball down and not throwing the ball a whole bunch down the field, despite the fact we lead the league in 20-yard plus
Exactly.
plays. But a lot of that came after the catch,
Yeah, the yak. Yeah.
So will teams want to try and design a defense around making sure that you're taking away some of those easier slant routes? And is that going to open up the field later on down the year next year? And are all these things going to combine to where we get back to that 2018, 2019 style offense? I don't know, but it's definitely something to think about.
I actually think they will. You can't cover everybody and you can't cover every play. So if you're gonna try and take away the short passes and the intermediate passes, then we're gonna go long on you. If you're gonna take the long away, then we're gonna go short on you and we're gonna eat you up with the yak. So no matter how you look at it, every defense is gonna have a really hard time scheming against this offense for a very long time.
Well, and how many times did it feel like? And there was, even against the Raiders, right? They went 3 and out 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And you're just like, man, you just feel like you're spinning your wheels, and you look up and you've scored 28 points.
Yeah.
And it's just like the points, they just come, and then you feel like for some reason or another the offense just spins out. And you're like, it feels like they're even too talented for this. So
sometimes I swear I was sitting here looking, especially when I was watching that Raiders game, it was almost like, okay, are these guys bored? Are they just getting bored? I was thinking about my daughter, and she always got bored in school because she was really advanced for her age, and she would get bored and didn't want to do her homework because she knew it. And it's like, man, is this boring for these guys to go out there and just, because they could have easily put up 40 points, but they didn't do it. I don't know. Sometimes I look at Mahomes on the sidelines and he looks so bored. There was a couple times during that Raiders game he's just sitting there and he's like, just waiting and waiting.
Yeah,
and waiting
when you're up by what? They were up by 18, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
When you're just killing a team and you know that they have, no roster or talent over there at the quarterback position because, they had bench Carr and they're on Stidham, and your defense is playing lights out. And you're just like, I understand why. It's not like that game didn't mean anything for the most part. The number 1 seed, and that's important and everything. But in terms of the overall, year, it's the last game of the season. You already guaranteed your playoff spot. Do you want to talk about what that guard said, the Broncos guard, about the snow globe play?
Actually, I thought that was kind of comical, and I was getting ready to switch into that really quick.
I don't want to say attacked on Twitter, but some things were definitely put in my direction, and that is the first time that's ever happened.
I tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell you that the way what I seen come out of his mouth, or what I heard come out of his mouth, is just absolute, utter jealousy.
Yeah.
There's no more. You can't say any more about what that was besides jealousy.
And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, there was a guard for the Broncos that was asked about something, and he ended up talking about, I think he was asked directly about the play that the Chiefs did, but he's the guard for the Broncos, and
he was
I'm
actually
paraphrasing
asked,
here.
By the way, he was asked about losing to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And what he wanted to do next year to improve, and he goes, my only goal is to beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, he said that he hopes that he can beat the Chiefs, and he said that it pissed him off when he saw that play. And
the ring around the rosy play, that's what he called it.
So it's just when he said that all he wants to do is beat the Chiefs, and that play pissed him off. One, he's an offensive player, man. But the Chiefs live in the head of the Raiders and the Broncos rent-free. Because now there's rumors coming out that Mark Davis is upset that his stadium was taken over by Chiefs fans again, and that there was a video made by a Raiders fan who said that he now feels like he's a Chargers fan because his home stadium is getting taken over by other fan bases, and we totally just like dominating this division. And I put this out on Twitter. I think I tweeted it out. At least I thought about tweeting it out, which is essentially the same thing. We're the new Patriots. This is what
You
it is.
actually tweeted that out.
We are
We
no
are the new
longer.
Patriots. We're hated.
Yeah, we're no longer the fun, exciting Kansas City Chiefs where we are the, coming in and we're just gonna take you out. We're not the fun, happy-go-lucky team anymore that people want to cheer for. We're no longer the underdog or the fun story. We're the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're supposed to win, and we're supposed to beat you guys, and people are going to want to, underestimate or try and shove us away because they don't want to talk about us. And we saw that coming into the season with, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen getting hyped up, and, it was, the Kansas City Chiefs are on the back door. We don't have to talk about them. Yeah. So we're the next dynasty. I'm going to say it now, and it is what it is. I was called arrogant on Twitter when I pointed out that, and I was like,
I had to make him look stupid after.
And I was like, I've been called many things in my life. Arrogant? Nobody's ever called me arrogant before. So, I guess I'll take that. I guess Kansas City Chiefs fans are arrogant because we've beaten a team 15 times in a row, and we're going to give you shit about it because we live in your head rent-free.
Every single time something like that came out, this is what came to my mind.
Oh, shit. Here we go again. Oh, shit.
Every single time, that's what comes to my head. And I think to myself, I agree with you as far as the Patriots analogy. The one thing I can say that we're not, and Mahomes is not, is he's not hated like Brady is from every other fan base. People actually like Mahomes. They hate the fact that he's as good as he is, but they respect him, and they know he's a good individual, where they don't believe that in Brady. And if you guys don't want to take my word for it, watch the video that I put up on Twitter. Because there's an hour-long video of everything that the Patriots did in a 20-year span to get them to where they were. So...
Yeah, the Chiefs are not going to tape the Browns practice. They're not going to, deflate balls. They're not
going to have lip readers. They're not going to have, that's a Josh McDaniel special right there, a lip reader. And then he did it with the Broncos. Then he had the big, looked like a satellite dish, and it was basically going across the field and listening to their plays.
Well, they had to change a rule because of Josh McDaniels this year, right?
Yeah.
They had to, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the Raiders were doing this thing where they were having a guy come and hold the kickoff ball instead of just putting it on a tee. They'd put it on a tee, and they would have someone come and hold it and angle it backwards so they would get the kick up higher. Halfway through the year, the league changed the rule, and you couldn't have a holder unless the ball was falling off at the tee because of the wind. So they've already, he's already brought his New England, we're going to try and fish with the rules here.
Yeah, cheat the system, basically.
And I agree with your point where, like, Mahomes and Andy Reid are not hated. There was that when the Chiefs bought him that cheeseburger and they put it in the box, and that video made it on Twitter. The comments there was a lot of people that were like, I hate how likable they are.
Yeah.
And so you're right there, where it's just it's not going to be the exact same because this team has a soul and identity, and I just think
people just respect them. I mean, like Mahomes has never been a guy that, I mean, he's been blasted across the freaking sidelines into a bench, and he gets up and goes, "Hey, man, good hit." He doesn't get all bitchy and lippy with people. He doesn't get in their face. He's not a Brady that does that kind of crap. I mean, he takes it for what it is and he moves forward. Now, have other players come in and done that? Yeah. They stepped up for him? Hell yeah, they have. That's their brother right there. They're going to do that. But he's not the guy that's just going to start an argument with you because you hit him the wrong way. Now, he did get a little lippy with Max Crosby once, which, hey, you know what? It's kind of understandable because no matter how you look at it, there's certain players in this league that do play a little bit dirty, and he's one of them. He's great, but there's times he plays dirty. So, As far as I can look, in my opinion, every time I hear the name Josh McDaniels, I hear this. That's what I hear.
You just love this new soundboard you got.
I absolutely do. So, I think he's made some mistakes again this year, and he's going to pay. He basically saved his job for a season, but that's as far as he went. He saved his job for a season because the only way he could have done that is one, they saw a cap hit coming from Carr, and he also saw that he wasn't making the playoffs, and they were in a really bad spot. The only way in his mind, he probably figured, okay, coaches are getting launched all over the league right now. I'm a first-year head coach with these guys. I've already got a bad track record of being a head coach or almost being a head coach with the Colts and screwing them over. So maybe I just better take a step back and go, okay, maybe I'll do this and it'll save my job for a year because I have to teach another quarterback my offensive guru ways. Well, you know what? Sorry, but you didn't teach Brady much because he's still an average quarterback that had a lot of people that helped him get where he's at. And this year was a great example of it. Last year was really actually a good example of it. So, I don't know. But we can move on.
Roquan Smith.
Yes, Roquan Smith. Now, what, let's see.
Roquan Smith got a new deal today.
Yeah. Wow.
$100 million, $46 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed. I think that
was a 5-year deal, by the way.
Yeah. First of all, good for him. Get your bag, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do. That's why he ended up getting traded from the Browns or the Bears, and ended up in Baltimore. The defense has improved since he got there, and he is one of the best off-the-ball linebackers in the NFL. The way I see this potentially impacting Kansas City is when Nick Bolton's time comes up here in 2 years when his contract is ready to be re-upped, and this is the first time we've seen an off-the-ball linebacker get paid that much. He broke the record for it. He's getting paid more than a lot of guys, and now this is a conversation we'll have years from now, but when you set the new standard years in advance, this is where the conversation becomes, is this what Nick Bolton gets? But, like I said, good for him. I mean, you got what you wanted. You got out of the franchise that wasn't going to pay you that much money. You went to a organization who has been built around a defense for nearly 2 decades now, and when you got there when they were struggling, and after you got there, the defense significantly improved. So, impactful player.
And what does that say about their quarterback?
Man, which one? Because they've played 3 this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to have. I don't know what they're going to do for, like, a starter. I mean, I really don't know what their plans are for that. I don't see how they can. They have to make a change somewhere.
Well, I will say there's a couple of important things when it comes to Lamar Jackson. One, Roquan Smith was representing himself, so just like Lamar Jackson. And 2, what's important about they got him signed is that they can still use the franchise tag.
Yeah.
So I imagine that he is going to get franchise tagged, and whether he gets tagged and traded or he plays on that franchise tag, I don't see this team coming to a contract agreement. I just assume that he's going to get franchise tagged by the Ravens. I would be surprised, honestly, by the time July comes around, if they've come to some sort of a contract agreement and he isn't playing on the franchise tag again, because from all the reporting, it just seems like they've been so far away from each other, and they haven't even been on the same starting point.
No, they're tens of millions of dollars away.
Right.
So, I mean, and look, I'm sorry, but I think Lamar Jackson has a very unique skill set, and I think but I said this, man. I said this was going to happen to him, and it did. And everybody thought I was nuts. Even Caleb thought I was crazy. I said, mark my words, After a couple 3 years, they're going to start going for his legs, because number one, he's got chicken legs. He's not built like a Michael Vick. He's not built like a Donovan McNabb. He's not built like a Josh Allen. Hell, he's not even built like Mahomes. He's got real skinny legs. Yes, he's elusive, but when you got a DB that's breathing down your neck and understands the moves that you're going to make, and he decides to take your ankles out or he decides to take your knee out, that's what's going to happen. And now he's had 4 significant injuries that have kept him out of games for the last 2 years. And I think it's starting to show, and people are seeing that, one, he's not a team player to a degree, although he did take a lot of shit from them trading off his best wide receiver without him knowing about it, and he wasn't happy. But he's just not that guy. I don't think he's that guy in that system. Now, if he learned to throw the ball better, and when I say that, he's gotten better, but he's not great. I think he would have a lot better chance, because when you're a run-first quarterback, people know there's a reason why you're a run-first quarterback. It's not just because you're fast and you're elusive. It's because you can't throw. And if you can't throw and you're not accurate, you're going to have to run with the ball. It's pretty obvious that if they wanted to sign him, they wouldn't have brought in and extended other people and then brought in and paid the money that they just paid. How are they going to pay him the money he's asking for? They couldn't even pay him Alex Smith money when he got signed with Washington. That would be virtually impossible. If he wanted an extension of $117 million right now, they aren't even close to that. One, the cap hit's going to kill him, because they're going after players that they know are going to improve their team, and I think they're probably looking at the draft, and they're looking at quarterbacks right now that are probably on the wire. Maybe a Derek Carr, maybe guys like that.
Well, you got to remember, there are Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo is a name people are forgetting about.
Yeah.
There are lesser guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. You know, if you want to keep going, Mike White, Gardner Minshew, agents at the end of the year, Teddy Bridgewater. I think that he has the potential to be significant again, in that to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, look what he did at the beginning of the year, right? I mean, if you were the first 4 games of the season, if you were facing Lamar Jackson in your fantasy league, I mean, you were just getting blown out. You were, I mean, everybody who had Lamar Jackson on their fantasy team in the first month of the season went 4-0. It was crazy. He put up 40 points like 3 out of the 4 games. Yeah. He was running all over people and slinging the ball around. So the skill set is there. I think that he needs to be better at avoiding hits. I think it's that. I think the guy just needs to not be afraid to slide. He needs to take advice from Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray never gets hit. His ACL injury was non-contact.
Yeah.
Just slide. There's nothing wrong with it. And the slide is built for quarterbacks. Give yourself up. So what? You don't get those extra 2 yards. Who cares?
Yeah. And we've seen what's happened when people fight for a couple
Jimmy
extra
Garoppolo.
yards. Yeah, we've seen what happens. So
Jimmy Garoppolo blew his knee out against us at Arrowhead when he tried to fight for some extra yards and got knocked out of the sidelines. It wasn't a dirty hit, but it looked like he was going to go out of bounds. Tried to tiptoe down the line, tried to get into the end zone, got popped out, and it blew his knee out, and it cost them the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. There's going to be between Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, Mr. Eyeliner himself, all of these guys out there that are potentially could play better for other teams, better coaching, better quarterback coaching, whatever the case may be, a fresh start. I don't know. I think everybody's going to find a job, and I just don't see the Ravens signing him to any kind of a long-term deal for any significant amount of money. Because if they were going to do it, they would have already done it. And I just don't see it happening. They're signing people all around him, but they're not signing him.
If it doesn't happen within the first week of free agency, he'll get tagged. I think he would be cool. It would be cool to see him in New York with the Giants because Daniel Jones is also a free agent.
Yeah.
That would be cool to basically get a better version of Daniel Jones,
Yeah.
which is what Lamar Jackson is. Yeah, I mean, one, get him out of the AFC, but more importantly, I'd like to see him. I like Lamar Jackson. He's a fantastic. It's why I'm so blown away with Justin Fields up in Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah.
I mean, just watching this man do his work is mind blowing. The way that he's able to maneuver his way down the football field. I mean, running quarterbacks are exciting to watch.
They are.
And they make the game better. We're seeing more and more of them come out, and I think they're good for the NFL. But the problem is that those hits build up, and I think the guys like Josh Allen are more the exception of the rule than they are the rule. I mean, even we saw Joe Burrow blow his knee out. Was that his second? Was that his rookie year? Is that his second year?
Rookie year.
His rookie year is when he
Yeah.
blew. Okay, yeah. So he blew his knee out in his rookie year, and you just never know which hit is going to be the one. And when you're a running quarterback, you're already inviting yourself to more hits. So you have to slide down, run out of bounds, go to your nearest baseball team organization, and ask these guys for tips on how they slide, because that's what you're going to have to do. You can't take those hits, and I think that has cost Lamar Jackson time in the NFL. I mean, I know at least the last two injuries are both knee injuries. Right now, he's dealing with the PCL strain, which is one of the 3 ligaments that makes up the knee.
Yep. And his first injury was an ankle injury, and that was the day I knew that they were coming after him. When you get hit like he gets hit now, especially now, he was pretty elusive his first year or two in the league. It was pretty hard to take him down, but it's like they seen it coming and they decided it's the time. We just got to take this guy. And something I want to bring up really quick. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but I watch it every time Mahomes runs the ball. I don't know if it's a combination of defensive players just have a lot of respect for him for the most part, or he is just his eyes and his footwork and the way he acts like he's going to throw the ball because nobody knows what he's going to do. Anytime he's going for a first down towards the sidelines, he never gets hit.
I think that's also, you don't want to risk the extra 15 yards because
I'm saying even if he's reaching out for that first down and there's 2 linemen or 2 linebackers or a linebacker and a safety right there, they almost hold up because they don't know what he's going to do. Or they just may respect him enough to know that he's going out of bounds and they just let him go out of bounds, but he always gets that first down without really getting hit. And that's, to me, looking at other quarterbacks that do the exact same thing, usually they get plummeted. And he doesn't. And it's kind of amazing to me to watch. And if you guys go back throughout the season and watch, because he's ran a lot this year, and you watch every time he goes for a first down, especially towards the sidelines, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like they almost hold up for him because they know he's going to go out of bounds. I don't know if it's that or if they just don't know what he's going to do next.
I mean, first of all, he doesn't seek out contact, right? So that right there is already important. So if someone's coming to get him, he's going to step outside or he's going to slide, right? Very rarely do we ever see him run the ball and get plowed, right? Because he avoids contact. 2, I think it's that if you're near the sideline and Mahomes has a tendency to just go out of bounds, you're not going to risk trying to push him late or put your shoulder into him a little bit just to pop him and then risk getting the extra 15 yards at the end of it with a unsportsmanlike conduct or whatever. That's just it's not worth the defensive player basically giving an offense 15 free yards that as a defense, you can't give them anything for free. So I think it's a combination of the both, where it's like his tendency is not to avoid contact, and if he sees a guy coming down, he's going to step out of bounds. Yeah. That's just what he's going to do, and that's what he's coached, and that's just what he's going to do. So,
We're moving on. Kingsbury is no longer a coach in Arizona. We all know that. DeAndre Hopkins, D-Hop,
Yeah, now on the trading block.
now on the trading block.
He is a 30-year-old wide receiver that is coming off of a pretty good when he was playing. All right, he missed the first 6 games, but when he was playing, I mean, he was a top wide receiver again. I don't know what he'll be worth. It's hard for me to say that a 30-year-old wide receiver is worth a first-round pick, but I do think that whoever does end up trading for him, multiple picks will be swapped, whether it's like a second and a fifth or something like that. What did Chase Claypool go for?
I thought it was a...
Quick Google. We're professionals.
Yeah, I don't remember. I want to say it was like a second and a third, but I could be wrong.
They sent their second. They sent a second round pick. So what is now
it
the
a second and a
34th pick?
conditional third?
It looks like they only sent a second round pick.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think D-Hop is a lot better. I don't know. It's going to be tough. Now, here's the question. What's going to happen to Kyler Murray?
He's going to be rehabbing his knee all year.
Knock on some wood, JP. Oh, that's funny. What's going on, Scott? I don't know, man. I mean, I'm hearing things that he may not be around there much longer.
No way. That contract is so they remember they signed him to that extension.
I know, but I mean, if somebody wants him, they're going to have to. Here's how it's going to have to play out. If they want to trade him off, they're going to have to eat half of his contract because nobody's going to take that contract on. Now, I can't say nobody. There's a couple of stupid people out there that might do it, but it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult to have somebody pick up that contract. I think he seems a little bit arrogant, and I understand his frustration with the whole, quit playing video games and study, watch film, all the other stuff.
I think
have you already talked about the backup offensive lineman that hates the Chiefs? Backup offensive lineman that hates the Chiefs.
Oh, are you talking about the Broncos guy?
Oh, the Broncos
That's
guy.
what you're talking about.
We touched on that earlier. Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit earlier. Which was comical.
I think that Eric Bieniemy would be a great fit in Arizona.
He might be.
You get another offensive guy there, right? I think that's the way to go no matter what team you are. You need to get an offensive-minded head coach to stick with your young quarterback. And I think Eric Bieniemy is the kind of guy that, you can go with the flow, but if you start fucking things up, if you, aren't listening, he's going to he's going to poke you with the hot stick. And I think that's what Kyler Murray needs.
I think he's just I don't know how to explain it. He's gotten so much flack that it's made him bitter. And when you get to that point that you're just bitter, you don't want to be there anymore. And it's kind of showing its signs. It like from his fan base to his coaching staff to the national media, everybody's really ridden him pretty hard. Some of it may be deserving. I don't know if it is or isn't. I'm not in that locker room. I'm not at his house. I don't know if that's all he's doing is playing video games. I don't know how much truth there was to that. He says there wasn't any truth to it, but his GM or ex-GM came out and said there was. And I love the excuse as to why their GM stepped down for health reasons. He stepped down because he fucked up. That's why he stepped down. Man, now maybe he created a shit ton of stress for himself by being such an idiot, but ever since he's taken over that team, they have been crap. So it was time for him to step down, regardless if it was because of health reasons or not. Which the only, like I said, the only health reasons I could come up with is stuff that he brought onto himself. But he's made a lot of public comments about people that he shouldn't make. He pulled a lot of shit with Veach at at his when Veach was a first and second year GM over the Pat Peterson situation. So it was just time for him to step down. Now maybe that'll make Murray want to stick around. I don't know.
That's why I think that franchise is in desperate need of some stability, because
they really are.
I think Kyler Murray is a very talented player. I think that there's a lot there, and you can build around a guy like that. But if this continues for another year, if you spiral down for another year, I think I think you're about to go too far, right? I just think that if you let this continue to spiral, you won't recover from it. And I think that's why a guy like Eric Bieniemy would be so good down in Arizona, because he has the respect from the league, and being he's with Mahomes, he's been with Andy Reid, right? You don't keep that job for nothing. And I think I mean,
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
I mean, you have to have something to bring to the table in order to have the job.
Yeah, you do.
And I think that you could take that to Arizona and try and build an offense around Kyler Murray, which I think is totally, doable. And maybe if you get, Eric Bieniemy down there or someone else, maybe they don't end up wanting to trade, DeAndre Hopkins.
Maybe.
So
I don't know.
I think that would be a really good situation for them. And you're kind of going to have to punt on next year anyways, because I don't know if it's reasonable to expect Kyler Murray to be back at all next year, just because that injury happens. So I don't know if we've ever seen one happen so late in the year to a quarterback.
Yeah. Thiz said, I don't think Brady ever swept his division, though. I don't... Whose division, Thiz? I don't know what you're saying. You got me confused now.
I'm sure at some point he swept his division.
Swept who? Which division?
I assume the East. AFC
I don't
East.
think he... there was a couple of divisions he never swept, and it might be the NFC East. I don't know.
Over 20 years, he never swept the AFC East. There was a time where Buffalo...
Oh, no, he did sweep the AFC East. He was almost guaranteed 6 wins a season.
Yeah, there was... you had Butt Fumble and Buffalo, and then Miami was the only one that seemed to give him troubles.
Yeah, Miami was, for some reason, they had their number, and I think it was just the fact that, they didn't allow him to get into their play calls and do the things that they did for the most part. Maybe they knew their tendencies more than everybody else. I don't know. Even as badly as Miami played for a few years, they still beat Brady. But it's similar to the Saints. I mean, look how bad they've been for the last 2 years, and it was a 9-0 shutout last year, and Brady couldn't get even in field goal position. And then you got this year that he squeaked into the playoffs. So there's a lot to be said about that by itself when it comes to Brady. But getting back to Arizona, I think they're going... I mean, I unless Kingsbury, I will say this about him, unless he wants to go back to college, I think he'll land another job in the NFL. Because he's not a horrible coach.
I think he's probably one of those guys that's a good coordinator, but just not head coach. Like, there are tons of guys out there. Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of guys out there that Jeff Fisher, any of the Rexes,
Yeah.
or any of the Ryans.
The Ryans. His dad was a lunatic.
He changed defense up in Chicago. The list goes on and on about guys that are good coordinators, great coordinators, but suck at being head coaches. Mike McDaniel.
Well, I will give him this. I mean, most of the time when guys are strictly college coaches and they come into the NFL, they fail quickly. It's usually within... You can see the failure within 6 games. Urban Meyer, guys like that. but when you're
That bar is so low now.
yeah, when you're an NFL coach and then you go to college and then you come back to the NFL, usually you succeed because you're able to not only coach up college guys that come in that need to learn the transition, but you also have the NFL knowledge to be able to do that. Like, the Harbaughs of the world. And now, he is flat out saying he's not leaving Michigan.
I don't believe him.
I don't either, but he has made it very, very adamantly clear that all the rumors out there were bullshit. And he's not
Okay,
leaving.
that's fine. You can say that.
Yeah.
I don't believe you
Yeah.
because
I have a feeling
you have a
he's in the
$3
NFL.
million buyout. If
Yeah.
if you didn't want to leave college, then either that buyout would be like significantly higher, or you wouldn't have one. 2, you have a level 1 NCAA violation on your ass right now.
Yeah.
So a great way to get out of it is to just say, just move out of their jurisdiction,
Yeah.
because you're going to have to go, into another football season with your hand tied behind your back.
Exactly.
So a great way to get out of it is to just say, deuces, I'm out of here.
Yep. Well, Scott,
And there's a lot of good jobs opening up right now.
There is. I'm going to give you. Which one do I want to give you? I'll give you.
Oh, shit. Here we go again. Oh, shit.
We don't have the knock on wood thing, but I'm going to get that in there though, just for you. Let's move on. Now, Sean McVay. We talked about this before, and I believe 100% he's going to end up retiring. I heard that he wanted to retire last year and didn't, and come to find out it was actually true. His girlfriend, on the other hand, came out and said all the rumors about him retiring are bullshit.
Once again, that's fine that you can say that. It's just at a certain point where there's enough smoke, there's fire.
Exactly.
And when it comes to some of these coaches stuff about whether they want to leave or get new jobs or whatever, a lot of the times it turns out to be true. So, and if you watch his press conferences, the 2 of them that he's done, right? They did the one after the game that they had against the Seahawks, where reporters were trying to ask him questions about that, and he said, "I'm not answering questions about that. I just want to focus on the game." And then yesterday's press conference, where because he's not in the playoffs, it is the last press conference of the year for the Rams up until when everything starts back up again. He was just, the way he was talking about it, he just seemed like a guy that
defeated,
who was like conflicted on it, but
yeah,
was almost trying to convince himself that it was okay for him to be done. And once you're in that mindset in a super competitive world like the NFL, you're not going to be successful.
And as young as he is, and with the
36.
money that he's made, he's 36 years old. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them. I would say if he retired today and wanted to live his life with the money that he's made, and even go into any other part of sports that's not so stressful, that doesn't take away from whatever you want to do in life, then hey man, go for it. He's a coach that, and I've said this before, they are very famous for throwing all their eggs in one basket to get to a Super Bowl, and then the next year they don't make the playoffs. Now, I don't remember him having an 11-loss season after a Super Bowl run, but to go down the way they went down this year, I'd say it's probably time for him to retire. If you want to do that, then go for it. Just retire and enjoy your life. You're 36. You're so young that you don't have to do anything anymore. You've got the money. You've already had the fame. If you want to just ride off into the sunset at 36 and retire in St. Thomas, go do it.
Well, and nothing says that you can't leave and come back, too. Dick Vermeil did.
Yeah,
Dick
a lot
Vermeil,
of guys do.
Dick Vermeil coached and then spent like 15 years in the booth, and then came back to the NFL.
Yeah, John Gruden did it. Didn't work out for him, but he did it. I mean, there's a lot of coaches
well,
that do it,
I think the coaching there, I don't think the coaching wasn't the problem there.
No, no, definitely wasn't. I mean, although they didn't make the playoffs for his 4 years that he was there. Or no, did they make it the last year? Yeah, but he wasn't coaching. That was the year that he got axed, and then they brought in their special teams coordinator to finish out the season. Which I think he probably should have got a shot at that job, but whatever. Nobody ever said Mark Davis was the smartest or the sharpest tool in the shed, so he's definitely
we know based on his haircut, he's not dealing with any sharp tools.
Definitely not. I mean that his hair was cut with a spoon. But yeah, they. I think when it comes down to it, you got to make a decision on if you're a lifer or if you're not a lifer. If you're a guy that's like an Andy or a Bill Belichick or a Pete Carroll that want to spend 40 years in the NFL and you don't really care, I mean, that's just your life, then that's on you. But I don't see that in McVay. I see him wanting to have fun, and he's got the ability to do that. So once you get the money and you can retire at 36, hey man, retire.
Well, and his wife's family is Ukrainian, and so I'm sure that's been pretty stressful on him with all that going on over there. And I think it would be irresponsible of him to try and continue to do it when he knows his heart isn't in it.
Exactly.
And he wouldn't be doing anybody any favors, and just sort of getting out. He doesn't owe the Rams anything.
No, he owes nobody nothing. He owes nobody nothing.
He took a franchise that was a joke. Let's be real. The Rams were a joke, and they moved to a new city, and he made them relevant. He made them cool. He made them one of the more exciting offenses in the NFL for a 5-year time span. He was part of one of the greatest, maybe the greatest Monday Night Football game of all time.
Yeah.
He gave, if you had a cup of coffee with him, you were getting phone calls from NFL executives about a head coaching job. I mean, he has a pretty big imprint on the NFL, and it's his choice. I'm not gonna shit on the guy for doing what he thinks is best for him and his family. I mean, especially if he does it now, where after the season's over and you give the the organization time to find out what it's going to do next. Man, you do what's best for you, And I would not be surprised if within the next 10 years Sean McVay's back with another team trying to get back into it. So
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it either. Okay, Lovie Smith should have never been fired.
Speaking of coaches and shitty organizations, the Texans are just a dumpster fire. That's what they are.
They are the absolute worst division. They are the worst organization in football, in my opinion. That's where people go to die.
Somehow Bill O'Brien was the best head coach, or the best manager of that team over the past 15 years.
And that's saying nothing.
And he traded away DeAndre Hopkins for those candy foam peanuts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That ownership group is horrid. Their front office is terrible. That is where careers go to die. And
I mean, it's like, what do you expect Lovie Smith to do now? I'm firmly in the belief that, I'm sort of in the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory here, where they didn't want to hire Lovie Smith at first, and then once the Brian Flores lawsuit came along, it was sort of like hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Somebody needs to do something about this, so they hired Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
I think Lovie Smith did a great job, all things considered. I mean, this was a team that has no significant talent at any position and was fighting and scrapping to wins and to, you took the Chiefs to overtime. You took the Cowboys to a last-second touchdown to win the game.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of good coming out of that. And to me, it just doesn't seem like the Houston Texans ownership group doesn't care about winning. It seems to me they care more about what their team looks like. And, when you trade away Deshaun Watson, who was supposed to be your next quarterback, and, I I don't blame them for that. But that's supposed to be sort of a franchise resetting moment. You're supposed to hit the reset button. And for the last 2 years, they have not hit the reset button. They've been doggy paddling in the middle of the pool. They're not going anywhere. They're just signing a bunch of second and third string guys and doing nothing. They have not made any significant move. And I would be so frustrated if I was a Texans fan because I see nothing to look forward to. Even at least other like bad franchises, like historically, look at the Lions. At least you had Barry Sanders or Megatron. Like you had star players to say, "I'm watching my football team because of this guy."
Yeah.
Who is that on the Texans? Who has been that on the Texans? You've traded away every single one of those guys.
I don't know.
There's nothing.
And by the way, as far as Deshaun Watson is concerned, he wanted out. He tried it the first time. They told him no. Then he sat out. That's when all the crap came out about
Yeah,
him.
I know.
So I think that has a lot. When you got a quarterback, regardless, at that time, he was, in my opinion, just under Mahomes as far as talent was concerned. He was very good. I can't say he's very good right now.
Yeah, he's not looked great.
He's not looked great. But when you have a quarterback of that caliber that says, you know what, I can't handle playing here anymore. I can't handle what you're doing to me. I can't believe you make trades without me knowing it. And they don't have enough respect for their quarterback, their franchise quarterback, to let them know, similar to what they did to Lamar Jackson when they traded away Hollywood Brown. He didn't know it. He found out on Twitter. That's how he found out that Brown got traded. So it's really difficult when you have people that are so fucking arrogant that they feel like their number one asset on the field doesn't have any say-so in what goes on. And I think that's a lot of the problem that you see with the Texans. You see it a lot with other teams in the NFL, that they just don't care what their quarterbacks have to say. And if you don't listen to your players, you're never going to succeed. That's the one thing I can say about Andy, is that he listens to his players. And he doesn't overrule what they say. If he puts faith in somebody, he puts his faith in them. And that's what's been some of the controversy over the last couple of years with the Chiefs, is the fact that Andy will allow Mahomes to do what he wants to do. Bieniemy doesn't want to do that. If he calls a play, that's the play that he wants to call, and that's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, too bad. If you don't run it, that pisses him off. And that's been a lot of the controversy that's gone on.
And I think that's the exact kind of attitude that the Cardinals need.
Yeah, I think so too.
I genuinely
But you need it out of your
that,
head coach. You don't need it out of your offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's
You
what I
need it
mean.
out
I
of your
think
head
that he
coach.
genuinely would make a good head coach in Arizona. But on the flip side, you see the problems that the Patriots are having, where to me that also seems to be a problem of like, we're better than everybody else with giving your former special teams coordinator and defensive coordinator offensive coordinator duties.
Yeah, that was
So-
stupid. I mean, look, he was a 4-win coach as a head coach calling offensive plays in Detroit. What the hell would you ever expect him? What do you expect to get out of him calling offensive plays in the team? It doesn't matter if he was with you for 10 years or 20 years or however long he was with you. He's still not an offensive-minded coach.
Yeah.
And
And I'm not a Mac Jones fan because a Mac Jones just plays dirty and it just seems to try
Yeah.
kick dudes and
Yeah.
twist ankles, but I'm not sure that I think that he's better than what he did this year, but
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be there next year.
I think that at a certain point, if you're, and I know this is hard for, billionaires to figure out, but the art of delegation,
Yes.
you pay football people to make football decisions.
Yeah.
Dysfunctional franchises do not allow football people to make football decisions. They
Right.
want to stick their head in everything. They want to stick their nose where it doesn't belong. You pay these people to come in and run a franchise, and you want to come in and undercut everything. You can't do that.
No.
Look at the best run franchises in the NFL right now.
Philadelphia did it to Peterson. I mean, they stepped on his toes after he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they wanted him to call certain plays. He said, okay, well, if you don't want to let me call my plays, I'll see you later. And he
He's
left.
The Chiefs right now. I mean, you see Clark Hunt. I swear to God, 3 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's at the beginning of training camp. It's you'll see him around the draft time, especially now that it's in Kansas City, and then at some point in the playoffs, the camera screen will cut to him.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 times you see him around. You don't see the dude.
And you know what's crazy about that is that if you look at the other owners in the NFL that are all up in the business of the teams, they absolutely have no background in the NFL. Clark Hunt grew up in the NFL. His whole family did. His dad started the NFL. He's the reason there was a merger. So when you see a guy like a Stephen Ross or whatever that guy's name is that owns the Texans, I can't think of it right now, or a Daniel Snyder that has no football background whatsoever, but they have a lot of money, so they buy a football team, and then they don't hire the right people to come in and run it. The old saying is always true. You bring in people that are better than you because it only makes you look better. It makes you look more intelligent. I've done it my entire career. I will hire people all day long that are better than me because you're going to learn something from somebody, and that's just how it goes. But
the dumbest people want to be the smartest person in the room.
Exactly. Yeah, and the loudest people want to be this. They want to prove that they're the smartest person in the room. That's just really how it always plays out. But regardless, at some point, the NFL has to make some changes too, as far as who they're allowing to. Just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you should be able to.
I think on the contrary, I think that NFL owners, the good NFL owners, like the dysfunctional franchises.
They probably.
I think they like that there are 8 to 10 teams that no matter what happens, you can guarantee they're going to win 6 games at most.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that I know for the next at least 3 years, the Broncos are going to be a dumpster fire. The Raiders will continue to be a dumpster fire. It makes me nice that I can get 5 of 6 wins in the AFC West every year. Pen that shit in. I'm going to get 5 of 6 wins.
All day long. Okay, real quick. Aaron Rodgers. He retires or he doesn't retire?
If you're asking me... Okay. I was alive for a lot of the Brett Favre ordeal, but one, the internet is not, it's different now, and 2, because the internet, I was younger, so I didn't really pay attention to football that much, but I think what the Packers did with Brett Favre was genius. They asked him early in the offseason, in like March, they were like, "Are you going to retire?" And they knew that if they asked him then, if they gave him the ultimatum then, he would retire and they could move on. That's what the Packers have to do. They have to get it on quick. They have to say, ultimatum, are you retiring? And they need to get an answer out fast. Otherwise, if we keep hearing this flutter along into June and July, he's not retiring. No. That's not what's going to happen. They have to nip this thing in the butt now if that's the plan. So... I don't think he retires. I think we're going to get that conversation where there's going to be a lot of speculation, and he's going to go do some ayahuasca, and something will come out. But he'll be strolling in to training camp when it comes time in July and August.
We'll see what happens. If he does retire, which I have a strange feeling he might, he already got his first $50 million guaranteed. So... if he retires with the money that he has and walks away for a season, I can't see that not. I mean, I can't see. It's not an unheard of thing for him. Sometimes it looks like he just doesn't have the heart for it anymore. And then there's times he looks like it's like when he's winning or he's doing well, that competitive drive comes back to him. But when he's struggling, it's like I would rather be on the golf course sipping scotch and not worrying about this anymore. And I feel like that at his age, he's 38, he's going to be 39. I think it might be one of those things that he just says, you know what, I'll give it up for a year.
I think he really wants that second Super Bowl ring.
He might.
Because there are, 7 quarterbacks that have 2 Super Bowl rings?
Yeah. But he's not going to get it with Green Bay.
And if you really exclude Eli Manning from that list, you're talking about the best quarterbacks of the best.
Yeah, and Arrowhead Chiefs podcast is on. He said, he thinks he might be just sick of Green Bay and you can see him somewhere else. Look, he's been sick of Green Bay for 5 years.
Yeah,
And
my counterpoint would be that contract isn't tradable because there's not a lot of franchises right now that have an extra $50 million in cap space. And if you want Green Bay to take on any of that, the draft capital that you would have to give up for that would be enormous. Because if there's one thing that franchises don't like to do is trade players but keep keep paying them.
Yeah. Well, I will say this: if it came down to, you could say 5 other quarterbacks in the league, including like a Derek Carr or somebody like that has a giant contract staring another team in the face. I think if I looked at all the quarterbacks out there, even at a 38-year-old Rodgers, I would probably tend to go after him prior to a Derek Carr. And he's right. The Jets do have the money right now because somehow I don't know how they spent so much money in the offseason. They still got a ton left. But
I don't know. Just to me, Aaron Rodgers seems to be kind of a legacy guy. And I don't know if going to the Jets, because once again, he'd just be following the steps of Brett Favre. I don't know if he would be okay with that.
I tell you what, though, they got a squad there that with a good quarterback would be.
They've got a great defense, and that's why I was jokingly saying Derek Carr and DeAndre Hopkins to the Jets, because I know they have a lot of cap space.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. It's just going to be definitely interesting. Hey, one real quick thing. So Sammy Watkins got picked back up by the Ravens and then fumbled the ball immediately, trying to fight for those extra, half a yard.
If you're going up against the Bengals and someone is wrapping you up, just go down. They are so good at getting the ball out. Those extra 2 yards, it happened. That's how Travis Kelce got. That's how he fumbled the ball. If you get wrapped up and you don't feel like the guy's trying to tackle you, he's just holding you up, just go down, because they are so good at swarming you and getting you to fumble the ball.
Well, they've practiced the art of punching the ball out, which
the Peanut Tillman punch.
Yes, and a lot of these defenses are going that route. We don't do it for some reason. I have yet to figure out why the hell none of our guys actually. It's almost like they're not coordinated enough to swing a punch, but they need to use that. They need to utilize that skill, because that's one of the reasons why. What's he saying? I personally don't think he cares about that anymore. Aaron Rodgers in New York with his fireworks. He might be right.
I think that's fair. The media market there.
Yeah. But they need to. Everybody talks about our turnover differentials and how bad it's been this year.
-2? Were you -2?
Now it's 2. It was 5.
Yeah.
A lot of that's because we don't really try. You can try for interceptions all day long, but if you can punch a ball out and you can get that art down, you got a hell of a lot better chance of turning the ball over just by doing that. And I don't know why our team doesn't practice that and really doesn't utilize it at all. I mean, I did see. I'm trying to think of who it was. Somebody on our defense did try it, but the guy was already down. And it might have been Willie Gay. He did try to punch the ball out. But it's very rare that if any, that you see the Chiefs do that. And I think that is a skill that you need to practice because it's working for other teams that do it every week. So, unless they're playing vanilla defense as well and not showing all their cards, and they have practiced it and nobody knows it. But
I will say that I don't want to say part of the problem is, maybe part of the explanation is that this team gets so many solo tackles to begin with. When you have Nick Bolton flying around and a majority of his tackles are just solo tackles, there's no opportunity to try and strip the ball out. You're just tackling people.
Yeah, we want to congratulate Nick Bolton on passing
On
DB's record.
officially the single season record holder of tackles for the Kansas City Chiefs. So
It's amazing.
congratulations to him.
Yep.
He is on his Ring of Honor career arc. And like I said, and I'm going to keep saying it, that if he plays his entire career here in Kansas City, he will be the Chiefs' leading tackler.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, he's 2 years in. 2 years. And look at the amount of tackles he's had in 2 years. That's pretty insane.
And Derek Johnson was in the doghouse for his first couple of years.
Yeah.
Him and Todd Haley did not get along. So
Haley.
Todd Haley didn't get along with anybody. So
yeah, Todd Haley didn't get along with himself.
Yeah.
Much less anybody else. I mean, he would have arguments in the mirror with himself about how stupid he was. And then his other ego would say, "No, I'm the smartest guy on the planet." Is what it is.
We went from him to Andy Reid.
Can you imagine?
Talk about two personality differences.
Holy shit. I mean, I wasn't excited when we hired him at all, and I didn't know what the hell they were thinking at the time. But they had been through so much, you had Dick Vermeil, then you had Herm Edwards for a little while, and that didn't work out. It's just like it was like one kind of a nightmare after another after Dick Vermeil was gone. And then you get the best. What's up, man?
When I first heard about, I don't know if I've ever told this, I was like, Andy Reid, the guy that just got fired by the Eagles? That guy? Because you would just, for a lot of my time, the Eagles were just a mediocre team. So when I heard that the Chiefs have hired him, I was like, you just hired a guy from a bad, mediocre Eagles team? So, like, when I first heard about it, it confused me. But then as more information started to trickle out, I was like, okay, like, whatever. But part of the problem is that for a lot of my lifetime, it was just, we were on a coaching carousel to begin with. So it was like, this is just the next guy to get fired in 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I knew the dysfunction that Andy had to deal with in Philadelphia. And when how do I explain this? The way Andy coaches, it's very difficult to find a group of players, a solid group of players that will stick around or buy into Andy's system the way he coaches. He wants it done the right way. He wants you to do it the right way on Sunday. I'll put it that way. If you practice something during the week and you make a mistake on Sunday and it's something that you practiced all week long, you're going to hear about it. But he's not going to berate you. He's not going to rip you up during the practices or tear you up down or anything else. He treats everybody with so much respect. All he asks of them is to play well on Sundays. That's it. Game day, you play well.
Andy Reid is never angry with somebody. He's just disappointed.
Yeah, that's it. He's like that dad. He's like that Leave It to Beaver dad.
And sometimes that's more painful.
It is. It's definitely more painful. There's nothing where, I mean, look, you can beat my ass with a belt or a switch or whatever you wanted to do when I was a kid. But if my mom ever said, I'm just disappointed in what you just did, I think that hurt more than anything. Because it was like, God, I just disappointed my mom, and I don't even know how I did it. I didn't do anything that bad. But you really did. It's that whole parenting feeling that you get from Andy Reid that when people buy into it, they really buy into it. And look, Terrell Owens, to this day, says that was the best coach he's ever had. And Terrell was a wild man. I watched his entire career. He was a wild man. So he did things that, just purposely pissed people off. A very arrogant guy. But Andy dealt with it. He dealt with the whole Michael Vick situation. He's dealt with so many things, his own kids, which are tragic.
Hey, as more information comes out, it seems like he was dealing with Tyreek Hill behind the scenes because he keeps talking, and he never did that here in Kansas City.
Well, I think I told you, and I know I told Caleb, And I actually said it on the show that there was other things that were involved with that whole trade situation.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't going to get into what it is, and I'm still not going to get into what it is, but one day somebody will. And when they do, they'll realize this is why this went on. I'm actually kind of surprised with all this shit that he has spewed since being with Miami that it hasn't come out. But some people just have the right mentality and they figure, you know what, it'll happen on its own when it happens, if it happens, and that'll be the end of it. But it wasn't just about the money, and it wasn't just about him wanting to get more snaps. There was other things that were involved that it was a mutual thing. I'll just put it that way. And Veach got everything he could get out of him, which I think was a great move. The one thing we don't have to worry about is that happening with Chris Jones, because he's not that guy. And you don't want to try to replace a Chris Jones. So, but when it comes to Tyreek, hey man, look, he's the guy that just squeaked into the playoffs. Squeaked in, so it would have one loss would have kept him out. One loss would have kicked him out of the playoffs. Or actually, I should say one more win would have kicked him out of the playoffs. So for a guy that came from a team that was pretty much guaranteed the playoffs every year with Mahomes and Andy, to go to a team that was supposed to be the most accurate quarterback and the best wide receiver duo and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I can blah all day long about it, but when it all boils down to it, it's basically just a giant fart. So, yeah. We have covered a lot on this show. By the way, that reminds me. Let me tell somebody something. I hope he's still on here. Scott, you never DM'd me your address on Twitter. So, come on now, DM me your address if you want stuff. Because he won our question last week on the show. Okay. I was reading something and I didn't really understand it, but I'll go along with that one. I think Scott needs to make sure he DMs me on Twitter your address, Scott, and I need your full name on it. If that is your full name, that's great. Name, address, and all that, so I can mail you out what you won last week.
He called you sir. Does that make you feel old?
Everybody, you know what? He could call me dude, bro, whatever. I still fucking feel old. But I just want to make sure he gets his gift. What else we got to talk about, man?
I think that pretty much sums it up. Tomorrow I'm going to release articles relating to my show, so I will be bringing up the debating. I have one about the Bears, how they should trade their pick, and the free agency class for quarterbacks. So I'm just trying to figure out which one that I want.
Okay.
Which one I want to talk about. So one of those will come out tomorrow.
Well, everybody that's listening, make sure you follow Quentin's podcast on our network, and make sure you follow Thiz's podcast on our network. Thiz is doing live stream shows himself now, and we are going to start doing a little extra stuff during the week, daytime shows along with other content. So make sure you follow us. We're going to be doing some giveaways with our partners, and or more giveaways, I should say. We've given a lot away in the last 2 years. Amazing amount of stuff that we've given away. So make sure you follow, give us a follow, and check out our pinned tweet or on our website. The new newsletter came out on ChiefsFocus.com with a bunch of different exclusive items that you can buy, all NFL licensed Chiefs gear. It's exclusive to us, so make sure you go on our website and check that out. And we have a new bobblehead promotion coming out. By the way, the one that I put out a couple of days ago, there was 115 of them total. Apparently, they completely forgot to send us ours, but they were sold out within 45 minutes. That's how popular these bobbleheads are. We have a set coming out, I believe, Friday. So make sure you guys, once I put that up, get your order in if you want one because they will not last. They're a limited edition. They make them. Usually, I think the max is 200 of them, maybe 250. If it's a Mahomes one with that, like that last one, there was 115 of them. They were gone in no time. So make sure you jump on that, and we are going to be doing some giveaways throughout the playoffs, the Super Bowl, and then in the off season as well. With that being said, check everything out, and we will talk to you guys again on Thursday. Appreciate everybody for joining. Peace out.